What is it called?
Yeah, 1 second. It's just Joffrey Sports of Minnesota.
Conference call. Show. Hey, Metam, can you record this at the same time or no?
Yeah, it's recording. One second. Let me just make sure we're live.
It's not. I will see everything on the screen.
Oh, I see it's live.
Just other space.
1 second. Hold on.
I'm gonna see it.
It hasn't come up yet.
Yeah.
I'm seeing it live.
Yeah, 1 second. Hold up.
So you need a pen?
I don't forget my email. Oh, I think so. That's what I think.
Just 1 minute.
I'm trying to off for that. Yeah, you better not forget that.
The YouTube page here. Yeah, 1 second, I know. Alright, okay, you guys ready, right?
No, I can hear you.
You guys ready?
Yeah. You ready, Metam?
Yeah, I'm just making sure this live stream works.
Hussein, can you go off mute? Perfect.
It's not live. It's live. All right. So, assalamu alaikum, everybody. I hope you guys are all doing well. Wanted to welcome you all to our first segment that we decided to start off this year, and kind of get to know the seniors of our community. Not only is the idea to first speak to them in Minnesota, but maybe possibly all over North America. So we decided to start off with 3 of the Walji brothers here in Minnesota, and the idea behind this is to get to know them better, understand where they came from, kind of how it was growing up for them, and seeing what they can give to us. So with that, I'll let Monty go ahead and talk about exactly what he's going to be asking, and then we'll kick off our first part.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. So we're going to be asking a few questions. But before we get into the questions, if each of the Walji brothers can introduce themselves. Hussein Uncle, if you want to go first.
Yes, so I'm Hussein Karmali Hirji Walji, to put it all in perspective. And I'm the eldest of all the brothers that you see here. And I have one sister as well.
So what's wrong?
One of my brothers did pass away, so we're three of us now.
Okay, perfect. Zuli Uncle, if you want to go next.
I'm the youngest of the family. My name is Zulfikar Karmali Hirji Walji.
Okay, and Shabra Uncle?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, you went through the elder, am I right?
Yeah.
And you thought the second elder would be Zulfikar Walji. But you are telling me he looks older than me.
Honestly, just in the I'm just going by the list of how it is up top here on the Zoom.
Okay, my name is Shabir Karmali Hirji Walji. I am the second to Hussein Walji.
Okay, perfect. Maitham, is everything good with the audio?
So I'm trying to figure it out. I think we're good. Let's start off with the first part, and then we'll continue. So Monty, kick off the first question, and meanwhile I'm working on the audio.
Okay, all right. So first question is probably going to be for Hussein Uncle, since you are the oldest. But when you guys got kicked out of Africa, why did you guys pick Minnesota? And what happened right before? What happened? Why did you guys leave Africa, and why did you end up picking Minnesota?
Okay, just to give you an idea, Uganda was under a military rule at the time in 1972, and Idi Amin was the leader of Uganda at the time. So he made an announcement basically that he wanted 80,000 plus Asians to get out of Uganda. So when that declaration was made by him, and we started to gather our documents and everything, we had to go through several different steps. We had to go through British embassies, through Indian embassies, and then we had to apply at different embassies, hoping that somebody would accept us. We were fortunate in a way that the United States accepted us, and we then moved from Uganda in 1972, and it was the 23rd of the holy month of Ramadan. Actually, we had fasted that day, and in the evening was our flight, and we left. At the time, my mother was with me as well. I was married, and Khadij was expecting at that time too. And so we left Uganda on the 23rd of the holy month of Ramadan evening, and we arrived in Naples in Italy, where we went into an army camp where we had several other families that had come from different parts of Uganda. So we were all part of that group in Italy. And then in the process, my daughter was born. Batul, the first daughter, was born on November the 12th, 1972.
So she was born in. So Batlanti was born in Italy.
Italy, yes. She was
I'm half Italian.
And she was born in Italy. And the unique thing there was that Italians in those times, they had no birth control or anything like that. So many babies were being born in that hospital in Naples. So when I took Kanis into the hospital, I was just told that, why don't you come back after 7 days? So I went back to the camp, and my mother asked me what happened. And I said, well, they're saying 7 days. They said, no, they're crazy. It won't be 7 days. It will be soon. And of course, Batul was born in the middle of the night. And then when I went back, I heard that she was born. And so I asked one of the nurses there, I said, can you tell me, is it a boy or a girl? And she didn't know what to say in English. So when I first said boy, she said,
made the
boy,
audio
boy.
worse.
I said, oh,
Go
okay,
change it back.
it's a boy.
They can't hear.
So
No,
we had
change it
already
back, change it
planned
back,
that
change it
the
back.
name was kept
Change it back, hurry up.
Muhammad at that time.
They can hear
And
you. No, they
then I
can't.
went
That's on
into
mute.
to Sikanese, and of course the baby was all covered at the time, so I had So I took along the name Muhammad and actually went to the Iranian consulate American consulate that was there. And I told him, and he said, okay, I'll prepare all the documents. So all the documents were prepared as if she was a boy. And then about 3 days later, one of the nurses came over to me and said, I need to see you in my office, because she was a very nice nurse and she knew some English, and she had recognized that I had been saying that it's a boy. So she took me into the office and told me that, how do you like girls? I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, I just want to, why don't you sit down? So I sat down, and he says, I just want to let you know that it's not a boy, it's a girl. And of course, that didn't go too well when I went back. It's just not because she was a girl, but because they changed from a boy to a girl. So I went to the camp and I told my mom that it is a girl. And she said, no, they must have changed. I said, no, they didn't change. I did see her. She is my daughter, and I know. And so from there, then from Italy, after spending nearly 3 weeks in Naples, we came to New York, and we stayed in a hotel there. And at that moment, we were told that we are going to Minnesota because there is a organization called Lutheran World Federation that is going to take care of us. So that is how we ended up in Minnesota.
Okay. Wow, I did not know that. So kind of piggybacking off of that, so Zuli Uncle and Shabra Uncle, I know you guys were a bit younger than Hussein Uncle. So starting with Zuli Uncle, what do you remember about that time and making the move from Uganda to Italy to New York and then to Minnesota finally?
I remember every step of it. And Hussein Uncle forgot to tell you that when we found out that we had a baby boy, we had telegram my aunt saying that we have the boy. And after 4 days, he had telegram again that we have a girl. So my aunt thought that he had a twins. Because she didn't realize that was just one baby, but was a mistake done.
Yeah.
But come back to that question about I remember every bit of it. At that, I still remember when Hussein Uncle had a toothache 2 days before we left, and he was in the hospital for a toothache. And I could just remember people coming over there with the gunshots to their head, to their face, and I can picture everything that had happened.
Wow.
And when we were at the airport, people were leaving the country, and what they used to do is they used to put plaster in their hand, thinking that they could hide the money so they can take the money with them, some of the rich people. And the army used to come and break that hand to find out if there was really money inside or not.
Wow.
So I remember the whole step. Coming to Minneapolis, I remember everything.
And then how old were you at the time when you guys were making the move?
I was 12 years old.
Wow. Okay. So Shabra Uncle, what do you remember?
Well, I remember whatever Julie Uncle and Hussein Uncle said.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not easy to leave Uganda,
Yeah.
So we left Uganda, went to Italy, In fact, before that, everybody were trying to go to England or Canada. But myself, I wanted to come to United States, And at that time, our Snashi people were telling us that you don't want to go to United States because they're going to put you in the army. Okay. So we were glad that we came to United States rather than Canada or England.
Mhm.
But other than that, yeah, I remember everything. I was 19 when I came to Minnesota,
Oh, okay.
and
And the reason they were saying that they'll put you in the army and stuff like that because United States was going through war with Vietnam
At the time, okay.
at the time. Yeah, so their people were scared, saying, you're going to a country. Why do you want to go fight for a different country? So that's why people were telling us not to come to United States.
Okay.
So coming over here to this country, after 2 days, I started working where I'm still working,
Mhm.
and Hussein Uncle started working with Wells Fargo.
Yeah, Shimoko, we're gonna come to that. So I have future questions. So just let it be, but we're gonna come to all of that. So okay, so obviously Shabir Uncle was 19, Zul Uncle you were 12, and Hussein Uncle you were how old when you guys moved here?
21.
21. Okay.
So now everybody is going to sit there and write down how old I am now.
Get the calculator out.
All right. So kind of like going off what Shabir said. So when you did move to the United States, what was your first job, and what was your most recent job or current job?
Are you asking me?
Yeah. So Hussein Uncle, Zul Uncle, and Shabir Uncle.
Okay. So in my case, I had one job from the very start until the day I retired, which was about a year and a half ago.
Wow.
I started to work. I had actually gone for an interview, and it's just kind of a little funny here because I went for an interview at what it was known as at the time as Northwestern National Bank in Minneapolis. And when I went to the first floor, I wanted to go to the HR department. And so I'm looking up and I see this huge building, very tall building, but I was wondering how to get up to the 7th floor of that building. So I asked one of the tellers there that is there a lift here? And she looked at me and I said, yes, a lift. And she said, well, if you want a lift, then you have to go outside. And you have to say that and go up. I said, I don't want that lift. I want to go up here. And so then she said, what you want is an elevator. That's how I came to know about what an elevator was. So she finally showed me an elevator, and I go inside the elevator, and I go up to HR, and I had my interviews. So I took up a job that was nobody wanted it actually at the time because Northwestern Bank was at the time installing a statement machine, which was like third in the nation, and it was complicated. And so they asked me if this is something that I would be willing to do, and I said yes, of course I will. And so that's where I started, and I started with the machine and stayed with Northwestern National Bank until the day I retired. So at the end, of course, with all the work that I did there, with Allah's mercy, I was able to reach to a position of vice president.
Oh, wow.
And I did various positions within the Northwestern Bank because it became then Norwest Banks and then Wells Fargo. But in that whole process, I used to manage several areas. I used to manage the travel department, the mail operations, the courier operations, the record retention services, the fleet of the bank, car fleet. And so all of those areas were part of the areas that I managed. And then when Wells became part of the whole banking business, then at that point I became the vice president, and I was managing what was known as transportation and logistics.
Okay.
And really in my position, I was the only person in the banking industry in the United States that had the opportunity to be in that area in the banking group. And so that's where I went, and gradually, finally the day came and I retired.
That's good. So going off that, Julie uncle, you had a very different experience, right? Because when you came to the United States, you were only 12, so you had to go through, I'm guessing, high school, maybe even middle school here.
Yes, I went through high school, and high school was in Dinkytown, where Target store is right now. There used to be Marshall. I went to school, and at times I used to ride a bike to school, and times I used to catch a bus. But that's what I did my high school. And then when I graduated, I went into photography and did my photography at North Hennepin Hotech.
Okay.
Then I became a photographer. I worked a freelance photography for Dayton's and Donaldson's for 2 years, shooting their catalog. And at the same time, I used to be a wedding photographer. So I shoot, weddings at the same time.
Okay.
But Muntazir, one thing I think in what Zuli is talking here about, in those days, we had extended families. So you can imagine that it was all of us. It was my baby and my mother, and we had basically a 2-bedroom house.
Okay.
But in that entire house, we all lived.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that Zuli, myself, Shabir, we couldn't afford to have just one salary. So what we had to do is we had to become newspaper boys, and literally we were delivering newspapers on weekdays and particularly weekends. I used to go around and deliver newspapers just to get extra income.
Wow. Yeah, so you guys came a long way from then, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
What you guys have right now as a teenager is nothing compared to what we went through.
Definitely, yeah.
We had to work for it.
Yeah.
Like Hussein uncle said, we used to go deliver newspaper, and on Saturdays we had to go to the warehouse and put the newspaper together to go deliver on Sundays. Didn't make a difference how cold it is or how hot it is. And at the same time, we had to go collect the money from the people. It's not like right now that you're paying over internet or comes out of your credit card. At that time, we had to go collect the money door to door to make sure that we get the money what we had delivered.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy. I did not know any of that. I'm learning so much here. It's only been like what, 20 minutes. So then, Zunko, so when did you start Star Banners then?
Star Banners started in 1990.
So what was the idea of starting Star Banners? Where did that come from?
That was not my idea. That was Batul Auntie's idea. She was working for a company, and the opportunity came where she said, you know what, let's do it ourselves because the other company could not keep up with it. So it was Batul Auntie's idea to open up Star Banners, and that's how we started Star Banners.
Wow.
And then at the same time, while working at Star Banners, I was working at Target and Super America because I had to have insurance. So I was working at Target. I worked at Target for almost 18 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you worked at Target in it's like a cashier or like a sales?
No, I was mostly working on the floor as I started out as a supervisor in planogramming.
Okay.
What that is where all the stores are set up same way that you go from one Target store to another Target store. We have to make sure all the Target stores aisle are the same. So every month the aisle has to be changed because of the season. So we had to make sure that all the stores look alike, and it was my responsibility to do that at my store where I was working at Crystal at that time.
Oh, okay.
All
right. So Shabronko, I know you wanted to talk about your job the most, so it's your time to shine.
No, before I start that, when we flew from New York to Minneapolis, and we were on the plane, and as soon as we reached Minnesota, it was winter time, and when we looked outside, we saw all that white stuff. Now, before we came over here, when we were told that we are going to Minnesota, we asked that, what is Minnesota, and they said, oh, it's a very nice place, 10,000 lakes and everything. So we were excited, Usually we wanted to go to California or or Houston, we never knew anything about Minnesota, in Africa, nobody knew, even right now, nobody knows it, except after Jaffrey started playing volleyball, So then we were in a plane, so we looked down, oh, look at all those white beaches, the tent house blacks. So as soon as we landed, we came out, and I tell you, we were freezing. So we came and we had a good reception from the church people, and two sides of the wings were closed, because many people came to greet us, newspapers people were there. Then they brought us home, Then after 3 days, they offered me this job at Augustana, and I took it, because we needed to work, and Hussein took the job at Norris Bank, So I started after second or third day, we started working over there. I went through a lot of experience, but I don't want to talk about that because you'll be here all night, But then I started doing all kinds of odd jobs and everything, work in the laundry and housekeeping and maintenance. So I worked for 1 year, and I was getting tired, And at that time, Hussein's supervisor, Millie Nesbitt, wanted me to do something in her house to fix lights, So I went to fix the light and everything, and she offered me a job at the bank, And I started saying to my boss, at Augustana, that now I would like to quit, because I don't want these odd jobs, I need some professional position, So he said, what would you like to do, And I said, I'm very much interested in these boilers, So he said, okay, we'll send you to school. So I went to Anoka Technical School for 2 years part-time, and I was working, And then afterwards, I went into the maintenance department, at the engineering section, and I worked over there for 3 years, and my boss retired. So I became a supervisor of one building, So 20 years ago, then I became a corporate director of maintenance, which I have right now 362 employees working under me. I don't know all of them, but I know some,
Yeah.
But from that day up till now, it's 47 years and 5 months working at the same place.
Wow.
So this last December, I wanted to retire, but what happened is that Augustana merged with other organization, and they named that organization as a CASIA. And the CEO of CASIA asked me if I can stay another year,
Yeah.
That's why I stayed another year,
Yeah. So from you guys, if you whoever wants to answer, you can go for it. So from moving from Africa to Minnesota, what was the hardest thing to adjust to, other than the weather?
Well, I think it's important for, particularly if the youngsters are watching or want to know some history, because it's important to know what was our situation in Uganda, in Kampala at that time. Frankly, we were a poor family. My father was a maker of, he used to repair refrigerators. And he was very devoted to the community in Kampala. So he used to cook and all that in the community. And he was also the head of the Wusulkafan committee. And so I was always with him, no matter where he went. Even when he went to cook at the mosque, I would go and help him. That is why I know at least how to peel an onion right now. Those are the kind of things we used to do there. And being coming from a very poor family, other than the jobs that we had, which was not enough really to run a big family. You can imagine we had 3 bedrooms in Kampala. I had 4 brothers, 1 sister. And then we had my mother, and also my grandmother was there. And then we also had my uncle's 3 children. So four children, so they were all there.
Mhm.
And then I had Muntazir that left for Arizona.
Oh, yeah.
He was there with us,
Yeah.
and his brother Sitain and his parents. And you can imagine, we only had, literally, we had 2.5 bedrooms. We didn't have anything. But in spite of all that, we lived in this house. And yes, when I went back to Uganda, it was absolutely amazing for me to even think that we actually lived in that house. But we did. And this is how we adapt and adopt. And so then coming here, of course, it was a big challenge because the community wasn't even there at the time. There were a few members of our community, particularly Mumtaz Ali Sabur. He was here at the time. But other than that, there was nothing here.
Yeah.
And so it was a big challenge. And in fact, one thing was very interesting that my boss told me is that she came from Marshall, Minnesota. And she said, you know, when I came to United States, I got on a bus and I saw everybody holding a bag, and she said, well, this must be a formality in Minnesota. So she decided to also carry a bag. Well, the bag that people carried was lunch bags. And everybody carried a lunch bag. There was no such thing as, oh, go to this restaurant or eat here sandwiches or whatever. You had to bring the food from home when you went to work. So she thought it was a formality. So she used to take an empty bag, basically, just so it would fit into the society. But it was quite challenging. Those years were challenging years. But alhamdulillah, we came a long ways.
So coming back to the question then, so what would you think was the hardest thing that you guys had to adjust to after moving to Minnesota from Uganda?
At least for me, the hardest thing is that I was always sort of a part of a community all my life, and just the lifestyle changes that we had to adapt to, because we were poor in our country, and when we came here, suddenly, you know, we were all staying together, and but we still had to adapt to the way of life here, which was not easy at the time. To come to a different sort of culture altogether. The culture shock was the biggest shock we had. Okay. And you know, and the way people used to dress and all this thing was very different for us. So that was quite challenging, and not having a community, not having people around you of your own faith was a very difficult task that we had in front of us.
Okay.
Muntazir, you're talking about how difficult it was. I think Hussain uncle forgot to mention that it was very difficult for us to leave Uganda because our grandmother was there. And we had to leave her behind, not knowing what's going to happen. And up to now, sometimes I think, how did we do that? You know, how did God give us that strength to do what we did? You know, so it was kind of difficult to leave Uganda. It was really difficult because we didn't know where we are going, what are we getting into, what's going to happen to us, and how are we going to get in touch with most of the relatives. You know, because everybody was going, nobody knew where people were going at that time. And when we first came over here, it took a while to find out where everybody was. And when we used to go on the street, when we see another person, our color, we wanted to go talk to them because we thought, oh, we see somebody that looks like us. It was completely different.
It was just kind of like what Hussain uncle said, like with the huge culture shock.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Huge culture shock. You know, no community, no friends, you know. Other than that, it was excellent. To me, US was excellent than Uganda, East Africa, you know. Even the life over there, our life was a little different, but I think we were very fortunate that we were kicked out. You know, to me, I feel like that we are much more happy over here. We became happy than we would have been happy in East Africa.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna leave that you guys' personal section and we're gonna go forward now. So going into it, I think this is the main reason why everybody's watching this right now. So how did Minnesota Anjuman Askari start? What happened? First, because I know there were different timings from the 3 buildings built and stuff. So how did that happen?
Well, Muntazir, having faith in God is extremely important.
Yeah.
Even when we were leaving Uganda, Kanis and my wife and my mother used to say, what are we going to do there? And I used to tell them that the only place you can ask for is from God. Just depend on Him. And if you depend on Him, you will see how your life will change for the better. That's exactly what I used to tell them. When we came here, of course, and so the situation was really not a good situation, because I had a daughter, and at the time, and how would I raise my daughter in this part of the world? Finally, the thought came when the World Federation was formed in England after the Africa Federation, is when I started to participate and take interest in the doings of the World Federation. And fortunately, Marhum Mullah Asgar was there at the time, and Marhum Roshan Ali Bhai Devji, may Allah give him a good place in Jannah. But he was based in Vancouver. Vancouver had already established sort of their own center, but Roshan Bhai actually came to Minnesota and sat down, and we decided, what should we do now? And we only had 11 families at the time. And so we said we should look for a land. And actually, we went to look for a few lands, and we actually went to see a church which we were supposed to purchase. And we had a donor actually who had come forward in Minneapolis and said, I will buy that church for us. And he was from Pakistan. But the next day the church burnt down to the ground. And so I told everybody at the time, Ali Bhai was there, Ali Sabur was there at the time, Shabir Bhai Yusuf Ali was there. So we sort of said that, this church was never meant to be. It is meant to be for us to build a place now. This is a message for us. And so we started to work, and we came across one of the congressmen actually in the state of Minnesota here. He was actually from the Brooklyn Park district, Muscle district, and we were trying to buy a land on 252 actually.
Okay.
And I did, and he kept on saying that, why would you want to buy a land there? You guys are coming from Africa, you are Muslims, situations are not dire in this part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can give you a recommendation. There is a land, and he sort of gave us the place, and he says, why don't you go and inquire about that land? So we decided, okay, well, let's just start to inquire about the land. And we found this land. And believe me, at that time, when we went to the city, the land that we have was not even registered in the city at the time. They had no idea, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still owned by somebody. And so we went ahead, and we had put an offer of $30,001. We had a wonderful person, Brother Miqdad, who was from the Bohri community, and he came to me and he said, Hussein Bhai, it's normal in our culture, in the Bohri culture, to put an odd number in the dollars that you will offer them. So we said, okay, we will put down $30,001, and there were several bidders. But we basically got the land, we won the bid. And then, it was, God had opened up. I think whenever there is sincerity in what you want to do, and you want to have the trust of God in you, then it is up to God. It's not up to you. He guided us, and basically, Alhamdulillah, over the past 30 some years now, we have 3 facilities actually.
Yeah.
But our community came forward in many parts of the world. It wasn't just United States, it was Canada, UK, it was Dubai, it was Oman, and several of those community. But our community came together basically, and as we went ahead with different projects, that is how we started the community. And Alhamdulillah, today we are where we are. But we always had to have a vision. Even though we were 11 families,
Yeah.
we had to have a vision, and we had to have the trust in God that whatever we are trying to do, that is what He is guiding us to do, because He can foresee what I cannot foresee. And so I left everything with God, and Alhamdulillah, with that guidance, we are where we are today.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. So, like,
And Muntasid, when we first came to Minneapolis, Hussein uncle and my mother made sure that every Thursday night we used to recite Yasin and Majlis at home in our living room, just us family.
okay.
We did that for so many years. And that's how we started little by little and moved up.
Okay. All right. So, Zuluncle, I'm gonna come back to you. But I have a question for Shabir uncle. So, as everybody who's watching this right now, everybody knows that, or if you're from Minnesota, you know that Shabir uncle probably spends more time at mosque than he does, like, probably at his own house, other than right now, obviously, of the pandemic.
Except now, yeah.
Yeah.
Now
So-
he spends it more home.
Yeah. So, Shabir uncle, have you always been into that kind of stuff? Have you always been like taking care of the mosque? Was
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, background on that?
Okay, when Hussein uncle mentioned to you about the land, so Hussein uncle called me and said, there is a land, 3.5 acre land in Brooklyn Park. So I want you and Abbas Bhai Yarali to go and look at it.
Mhm.
So I took Abbas Bhai with me, it was a night time, 9 o'clock at night, and the real estate wanted to get an answer by 11, whether we are interested in it or not. So me and Abbas Bhai went over there. Everything was dark. We can see a pond over there
Mhm.
and grass. And Abbas uncle looked at me and he said, well, how are we going to make this decision? I said, well, let's leave it to Allah. $30,000 was a lot of money at that time. And he said, well, what happens if it's in the morning when we come, we see it's all swampy area? And I said, then it's our luck. So let's go and call Hussein uncle and say, let's go ahead and purchase that land. So once we purchased, and then we found the contractor, he built the top level of the Imambara, but the city is not going to allow us to use the basement, is because we were already 5,100 square foot. So the basement was left for at least 2 years, though, unfinished. And then Hussein uncle told me at that time Ali uncle and Muhammad uncle were in the executive. So they told me to see if I can go to the city and see if they would let us finish the basement. So I went over there and I was thrown out. Literally, I was thrown out. That that we don't want
Out of where? From the city, right?
from the city. I was thrown out. So then I came home very sad, and I told my mom, and he says, don't feel discouraged, make an appointment again. And when you are talking with the mayor over there, just kind of recite Salawat, So I did that, and all of a sudden they approved it,
Oh, wow.
So we embarked on that project. So I was involved in it 100%. And then we were having a madrasa in the Imambara, but then the students accumulated more. So we decided that let's see if we can build madrasa next to Imambara. So I went down to the city to get the permission. They completely refused. So then one day I was at work, sitting in a lounge, waiting for an architect, his name was Dan Erickson,
Mhm.
that I wanted to ask him question about our Augustana building. So when he came in and he wanted to see my boss, so at that time I had a time to talk to him, that we would like to build, a school center, just one level.
Yeah.
and it can be 50, 100 square foot, so we don't have to put a sprinkler system. So he said, where about? And I said, but they are refusing us. So he said, where about? I said, it's in Brooklyn Park. So he said, oh, okay, don't worry. I know somebody over there, and I'll talk to them. So he went down and talked to that was his buddy, that we should let them build, So then he told me, bring the plans, So we made up a plan, at that time Shafiq Karim joined me, So we embarked on that project on Madrasa, So after Madrasa project was finished, we used to go and play volleyball. Now this volleyball, came to an existence where we have a gym, How it came, we were at Hennepin Technical College, we were playing over there. We look forward, on Friday, we fight, all of us. You are nothing, how we fought over there on the ground. So then one day, it was a Thanksgiving Thursday, and Friday, they told us we can't play, and we were very sad, So at that time, Hussain Uncle and Muhammad Ramtullah said that, Muhammad Uncle Ramtullah Pirbhai said that, is there any way we can build in our 3-acre land, Because at that time, that parking lot wasn't ours,
Yeah.
So I said, the only place we have is in the backside, the swamp,
Yeah.
So we decided it's impossible, Okay. So same thing at that time, our other project, Augustana, started, and I talked to this Dan Erickson. I said, we are interested to build an MPC, multi-purpose building. Mostly it'll be sports, but then we'll have our other
Programs and stuff. Yeah.
So he said, let me draw up a plan. And I said, but we don't have a land over there much. So he came down and he looked at it. He said, I can build on this swamp for you. I said, okay. So he drew up a plan and we took this plan to the city, At that time, Governor Ventura, who was the wrestler, he was the governor. Okay. So I went at the city and, at the city hall, everybody was sitting down and Ventura was there. So I brought up our plans, and I was rejected by everybody. So Ventura stood up and said, I will sign, you can build, okay? So we started that project over there, building it. And then afterwards, after that was done, we started looking into acquiring the land that we have. Nazmul Uncle was kind of pushing me that let's see if we can try to get it done. So I had to go to Maple Grove and Brookland Park. I had to have a couple of meetings. And finally, they approved, that we can have that land, So we got that land right now, and then from that day, so it's over 30 years, I've been in the executive committee,
Yeah.
That's why you see me over there more than anybody.
And just to give you an idea, that land actually was our land, even though what had happened was the city gave us 10 years and said, listen, if within 10 years, if we don't build a road on this, then that land belongs to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so really after 10 years, they hadn't done anything. They hadn't built the road to go into Champlain from that side.
Yeah.
And so it was a great opportunity, and that's where Shabir Uncle went in and finally got that piece of land.
So the last thing I want to do is, so I have a little game set up, and I asked you guys questions before. So before we get to the game, if Hussain Uncle, you can go first, and Zul Uncle, and Shabir Uncle, if you have one piece of advice that you could give to the youth, what would that advice be?
My advice to the youth is that be part and parcel of a community and be active. If you want to remain as a good Muslim, good believer of Ahlul Bayt, and to have your own children at one point be what we are today, then you will have to connect and stay connected with the community or you will lose yourself and your children in this part of the world.
Mhm.
Coming once a year, twice a year does not help.
Yeah.
What helps is us being in the community, interacting with the community. I think the community must be realizing today how a community is now that we are all under house arrest. But that is my biggest advice to the youths, is that all of these that we have done, it was that vision that we had down the road that our children can be and will be protected. And I think we've done the best we could.
Mhm.
In fact, there was no community until in the last 10 years that they started to even think about gyms and all that. But the fact of the matter is that we must make sure that we are part and parcel of a community in order to remain as a true believer of Ahlul Bayt and to have a fairly decent Islamic life going forward.
Thank you, Hussein Uncle. Zuli Uncle.
My biggest thing, beside what Hussein Uncle said, is don't forget your own family, your parents. The youth sometimes might think they know much better than the parents because of the experience that you might have left in this part of the world compared to what we had. But listen to your parents. It will take you a long ways.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. And lastly, Sugar Uncle.
Okay, same thing, whatever Hussein Uncle and Julie Uncle said. But what I'm saying is that our youngsters in our mosque, like Muntazir, you and Mason, and Muzammil, and all the youngsters, I don't want to name everybody, you are a very good volunteer at our community, Whenever I ask you, you are there. And another advice I'll give you is that you guys will have to work very aggressively hard to come up, So I would advise you and respect your parents and everything, and respect the elders of the community, and who were the leader before. Sadiq was there should be Yusuf Ali, Shafi Karim, Muhammad Ramtullah, Hussein Uncle, Ali Sabur, Abbas Bhai, So, and myself. You better respect me.
All right. So now we're gonna get to the game. So the game is, how well do you guys know each other?
Monty, I'm gonna
yeah.
jump in now. I think now we're good. The technology is finally popping, so we're good.
Okay. All right. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Yeah. I can't turn on my video, but we're good.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Nathan.
Okay, so Monty, you want to do the first? So I'll do the first question.
You have to first see who we're gonna pick, right? So, okay. So first, we're gonna do Hussein Uncle. So we're gonna ask Shabir Uncle and Zuli Uncle a question about Hussein Uncle, and we're gonna see basically if they're right or wrong. All right. So Nathan, we can ask the first question.
Okay. All right. So the first question is, what is his favorite dinner to eat? What is the dish? What's the favorite dish to eat? So who wants to go first? Who wants to take a guess first?
Okay, I'll go first. Darnu Sak.
Okay. And Zuli Uncle?
Kitcherop.
All right. Hussein Uncle, what is the answer that you told me?
Muntazir, I have not had fish for a long time, so I said.
Yes, so the answer was fish. That's the answer that Hussein Uncle gave me. All right. Next question. What is Hussein Uncle's favorite color?
I think it's between blue and yellow.
Okay. And Shabir Uncle?
Red.
Okay.
Red.
Okay. Hussein Uncle, what is your favorite color?
Well, I said green, but red is also a good color.
You can't change the answer.
You guys are 0 for 2 so far. All right, Nathan, next question.
Okay, so the next question is, who was Dad's best friend as a teenager?
Ramji, what's his Jamar Ramji's son? I forgot his name.
Ibrahim.
Ibrahim. Yeah.
Bingo.
All right,
Okay.
there you go. You
got that one.
You guys got one? All right.
When Kara, and when he was younger, it was Sakina Saleh Muhammad's father, Sultan Asari.
Okay.
We were all schoolmates.
Okay. All right. So the next question. All right. So this one. I think you guys should know. You guys should get it. But what is Hussein Uncle's birthday?
10th October 1951.
Yep. 10:51.
Julie Chacha
All right,
didn't know.
all right.
He just said, yup.
That's all right. Ask him every time of who is his birthday.
All right, Mason, go ahead with the last one.
Okay. So the last question is, what was Dad's favorite sport as a teenager? Julie Chacha, you go first.
Cricket.
Shabi Chacha?
But I'll tell you, your dad was not a sportsman at all, So I don't think I saw him coming down to see any cricket games. Yeah, he never played badminton. Maybe he played little soccer
Oh, wow.
and marble.
That's impressive. That was right because Hussein Uncle
Gilli
told me
danda.
that his favorite sport was soccer.
You got that one. Okay.
All right, so Shabir Uncle, you won that round.
Thank you.
Okay, so
All
now
right.
we go. Who's going next, Monty?
So next is we're gonna do Shabir Uncle. So we're gonna see how well Hussein Uncle and Zul Uncle know Shabir Uncle. All right, so I'm gonna start. So, what is Shabir Uncle's favorite dinner?
Favorite dinner? Must be Darno Sak.
Why is
I know
everybody...
he likes Mahambri a lot.
Shabir uncle used to be a meat eater when he was young, until we came to this country.
Mhm.
So I would say ghost nusak.
Okay. So Shabir Uncle, what did you tell me was your favorite food?
Chicken tikka.
Where the heck did he see tikkas?
Okay, here it is.
Nargis Kapuri there in Kampala.
Yeah, Nargis Kapoor, no, not Nargis Kapuri, but Jafar Ganji. His chicken tikka was the best. So I used to go over there all the time.
Okay. All right. Matham, go ahead with the next question.
Okay. So Jujicha and Dad, what? I don't think you guys are gonna get this, but let's see.
There's no way you're
What
gonna
is Shabi Chacha's favorite color? Dad, go first.
Purple.
Jujicha?
Purple it is. Purple.
Shabi Chacha, what did you say to Monty today?
I said pink or salmon.
No, it's always been purple from the very
The
beginning.
reason he's saying purple is because when I got engaged, Savera auntie loved purple, so she forced me to paint my room purple and everything, But that wasn't my favorite.
So that's Sabrati's favorite color, not Shabir Uncle's favorite color. All right. So Hussein Uncle and Zul Uncle, who was Shabir Uncle's best friend growing up in Africa?
Jessa.
Hussein just
Vimji Jessa. Hussein Vimji Jessa.
All right. They got that one correct. All right, Matham?
Okay. Next question is, all right. First, we're gonna start out with Dad. Jujicha, you can't say the answer. Dad, what's Shabi Chacha's birthday and the year?
Shabi Chacha's birthday is oh boy, that's a very good question. But I believe I believe it's July 1953 or April.
Okay.
Okay.
Dad, what's your final answer? April or July?
April 17th.
All right.
He told
And
her.
then what year?
53.
Okay, Jujicha,
Okay.
what's your answer?
Same answers. April 1753.
All right. So a funny story was when I talked to Shabir Uncle on the phone, he told me it was April 17th, 1953. Or sorry, 1963.
No, 53. I look 53.
You told me that you were born in
No.
1963. So I'm like,
If I put
Shabir
63,
Uncle's only
yeah, if I put
56 years old. I'm
63,
like,
I look younger, but that's what you thought, I'm 10 years behind,
All right. And the last question is, what is Shabra Uncle was his favorite sport growing up?
From my perspective, I think it was cricket.
All right. and Zuyo?
Cricket.
All right. Yep. So
He
you guys
used to
got it right.
he used to love cricket, and he used to collect in those days what you guys call cards. You know, those the bubble cards or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
He used to collect
Okay.
cards of, you know, they used to, at that time there used to be actors and flags. That was his hobby.
I know. When I was talking to Shabra Uncle before, he wanted me to ask him who was his favorite Indian actor. So Shabra Uncle, if you
Shami
want to tell
Kapoor.
everybody who your favorite Indian actor is.
Shami Kapoor.
Yes, that is right. All right. So last, we're gonna go to Zuli Uncle. So Shabra Uncle and Hussein Uncle, you guys are going to be answering the questions. So Matham, if you want to start.
Okay. So first question, like we did for everybody else. Dad, what's Zuli Chacha's favorite dinner dish?
Well, I don't know. I think it's khichdi.
Okay, Shabi Chacha?
Biryani.
Yo, you guys are really off. Like, you guys are all.
I think you guys need to start eating dinner more together after the
Zuli Chacha,
pandemic.
what did you tell Monty?
Karai chicken.
Karai chicken to hamna શરૂ થયું છે.
He started when you were young.
Palama શું ખાતા હતા આપણે?
Karai chicken નહોતું, છોકરાનું શાક હતું.
Something similar.
After reality came, we found out what karai chicken is.
Okay. All right. What? Oh, go ahead, Monty. It's your turn.
Okay. So Hussein Uncle, Shabra Uncle, what is Zuli Uncle's favorite color?
Purple. Very good.
What is it?
Hussein Uncle?
I would say probably brown.
Okay. All right. So Zuli Uncle, what?
Blue.
The two
I've
older
never
brothers
seen
don't
that.
know their youngest one. They're 0 for 2 right now.
But see here, Monty and Mason. Now, when you are telling me what is Julie Uncle's favorite color, now when does it stick in your mind that it does when we were in Africa? Okay, at that time, we would figure it out. Whoever is wearing what color shirt the most, that would be his favorite color. But at that time, Julie wasn't wearing shirt. He was too young. He wasn't wearing shirt. So that's
I was getting the rundown shirts
he was wearing filana.
from 3 people: Hussein Uncle, Shabir Uncle, Julie Uncle. Then he came to me, Aslan Uncle.
Oh man.
Oh man. All right, Matham, go ahead with the next one.
Okay. Who was Julie Chacha's best friend? Dad?
Julie Chacha's best friend, I believe, was Chattu.
Okay.
Okay,
Shabi
Shabra Uncle.
Chacha?
Should I name one or two?
1. Who would he say is his best friend as a teenager?
Ratan Singh.
What's his first name?
Well, I don't know his first name. Okay.
Muhammad.
Mohammad Rans. Okay, let's take him out. Waris Remtullah.
All right.
Julie Chacha, what did you say?
I said Waris.
Yeah.
But that's back home.
Going off that question, when I first asked Zuli Uncle, he told me his best friend was Jim Marshall.
Yeah, because he was my classmate when I first came to this country.
Okay.
You're still in touch with him, Julie Chacha?
Who?
No,
Who? Jim Marshall?
yeah,
A football
not the player.
No, not
I thought, what?
The Viking star, Jim Marshall. All right. So next question is, all right, Hussein Uncle, what is Zuli Uncle's birthday?
That's I know his birthday.
This is going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
an answer.
I think Shabra Uncle knows, but let's see.
Wait, wait.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's October 16th.
Okay. And then the year?
and the year would be 1950.
All right. Final answer, Hussein Uncle?
Yeah.
All right. Shabir Uncle, what do you think is your birthday?
15th October 1960. After 2 years, Uganda got independence, so I remember it's 1960.
Julie Chacha, when's your birthday?
Shabir Uncle, what's your birthday?
I don't know. They just celebrated my 60th birthday not too long ago.
But
That was fun.
I just want to let them know the year and the date, please. Especially Shabir
59. 10,
15th
16, 59.
What did he say?
10, 16, 59.
No, that
We were correct.
but Uganda was
That's wrong. That's wrong.
Wrong year, Julie Chacha. We just said you're wrong. Okay. Baji, is there one more question, right? That's it.
Yeah, ask him, Matham. It's your turn.
Okay. What was Julie Chacha's favorite sport to play while he was a teenager?
In Africa.
In Africa, he really liked bearing cars. He used to sit on these cars that were made of bearings.
Okay.
Okay.
That
That was
sport?
his favorite there. Then over the time, it changed to football, American football.
Okay. Shabir Chacha?
Well, at that time he was too young. He didn't know what cricket or any other sports was, So I would say over there in Uganda, I would say maybe soccer or playing with marbles.
Playing with marbles.
They forgot that I used to play cricket right across our Jamaat flats.
Oh,
With
man.
Jamaat flag.
All right. So, Uncle, what did you tell me was your favorite sport?
Cricket.
My favorite sports, as far as sports is, I enjoy watching football.
Mm-hmm. So wait. So going back to that question for Uncle, you told me swimming and diving.
Yeah, that was because of that. You didn't specify back home or over here. When I came over here, I started swimming and diving.
Oh, okay.
And skating.
Well, that's it, right, Monty?
Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay, well, it looks like it's been a little bit over an hour. Thank you, all three of you, for coming on for our first ever time we're doing this. I know there was some. Go ahead.
Mesam.
Yeah.
Mesam and Monty, before we end up, when Monty mentioned to me about spending a lot of time in community, I just want to thank a couple of people, that I work with. First of all, it is Hussein Uncle, with his effort and vision, we would have not come up where we are, I guarantee you. Second person I would like to appreciate, working with him was Shabir Karim, that I work with him for Madrasa and MPC project. Then I worked with Muhammad Gantullah, Ali Sabur, and Abbas Piarali. So I appreciate all of them, working under them. And then I worked for all those presidents, and everybody did a good job,
Okay.
Thank you, Shabir Chacha. Thanks for adding that. Well, with that, I'm going to let everybody go. I'm going to apologize for any of the technical difficulties. We pulled it off at everybody was at home.